OP05 has some interesting decks. It has decks like Red and Purple Luffy that are absolutely performing. Red and Purple Law, who is a deck that a lot of people saw coming as a contender, as well as Enel being a surprise to many, a deck that people weren't really too hype about to start with, but now seeing it in action, a ton of people are chomping at the bit of piloting Enel themselves. Me? Well, I am an advocate. I am part of the fellowship of the Church of Pluffy. That is right, Purple Luffy is my deck for OP05. I'm declaring it the same way how I declared Queen would be my deck for OP04. And for me, I've decided, I know, I've talked about Red and Purple Luffy, I've made videos on it, I've talked about Red and Purple Law, but I'm doubling down. I've also made a video on Pluffy, and I'm doubling down and sticking with Pluffy. For me, this leader it is insanely fun, but it's just stupidly good, almost in an annoying way. And in this video, I'm going to be talking to you guys about Pluffy, my thoughts on it. Well, you guys already know my thoughts on it, but I'll be going more in depth on my thoughts on it. And, trying to convince you guys to come over to the Church of Pluffy. So with that being said, how's it going, everybody? My name is Ryan, aka Blackbeard TCG. Hope you guys are all having an amazing day, and if not, hopefully I can make it a little bit better. Now look, let's go ahead and start talking about our boy Purple Luffy. With 5,000 power and 5 life, he's your standard leader. Mono purple with the ability, once per turn you may add the top card of your life to your hand, that's the cost. If the amount of Dawn on your field is 0 or 3 or more, add up to 1 Dawn from your Dawn deck as active. So you're not able to do this on your first turn, whether you go first or second. However, after that, you are free to use your Luffy ability throughout the game and be able to ramp. Now, of course, it comes at the cost of your life. Now, if Whitebeard has taught us anything, adding cards from your life to your hand is very powerful. So, instead, read it like this. Once per turn, draw a card, ramp 1. That is this ability. If you read it like that, it's just absurd. It doesn't even make sense, right? Like how strong that is. Of course, you could say, well, obviously you're making yourself really low, and of course, when you look at a leader like Edward Newgate, he has 6,000 and he has 6 life, so he's a little bit more durable, and you're not wrong. You're not wrong at all. However, trust me, you have to play this deck for yourself to see that this also works very, very well for Monkey D. Luffy. He has access to some very potent and powerful blockers that will allow him to stay alive, as well as events if you decide to play them as well to make him very tanky. In terms of those blockers, we have to talk about Law and Kid. Now, I'll be completely honest. The Eustace Captain Kid out of OP05, not the starter deck one, we'll talk about that in a bit, but the one in OP05, bruh, how was this card made? 6,000 power, 5 costs. I've talked about this multiple times on my channel. This is a nice stat line. It has blocker. Okay, so it has the same stat line as Queen. Another character. I've been playing too much Queen in OP04. Another character that is widely known as probably one of the best blockers in the game because of the second part of its ability, right? It's not just because it's a blocker, but it's because it gives you advantage, right? You're able to draw. Well, Eustace Captain Kid gives you advantage in another way. When a Dawn card is sent from your field to your Dawn deck, add 1 Dawn from your deck as active. What does that mean? You can send back a rested Dawn as you can with any minus Dawn effect, and it now becomes active. You're basically getting a huge advantage by doing this. You couple something like that with your leader ability, and all of a sudden, you have 2 more active Dawn than you otherwise would have had. Not to mention his stat line. We talked about it. 6,000 power. You look at Trafalgar Law, 5,000 power. Again, these are blockers that are going to be good on the defensive end, but if you're in the scenario where you need to swing with them, they're very potent to do so. Trafalgar Law, on the other hand, if your opponent has 7 or more cards in their hand, you can go ahead and rip 1 out. This is also very nice, especially when you get to that mid to late game. Trying to cut down your opponent's hand a little bit. Maybe they've been taking too much damage, adding cards from their life to their hand, which we all know is powerful, which is why we're playing this Luffy. You can go ahead and rip 1 out while also establishing a blocker / attacker. These 2 key cards are very strong. Again, you couple this with Queen and you have a formidable trio of blockers. Now, remember, I didn't forget about the 7 cost kid, the one from the starter deck. This card is absolutely bananas, right? On play and when attacking, you can send back 1 Dawn, and you can give your leader 1000 power until the start of your next turn. So it's 1000 power for the remainder of that turn that you use it, and then on your opponent's turn, it still keeps that 1000 power buff. Oh, and by the way, if you have multiple copies of this on board, guess what? It stacks, yes. So you can have 2 useless Captain Kids on the board. Maybe you had one already on the board, you attacked with it, you use its ability, boom, plus 1000 to your leader. Now you play another one from your hand. On play effect, boom, plus 1000 to your leader. Maybe you have 2 on the board, you attack with both, up plus 2000 to your leader. Again, once you get to the late game as well, there's a lot of situations where this can become very powerful, again, in conjunction with that 5-cost kid, allowing you to basically just get that Dawn back as active, and you can go ahead and attach it again for an extra 1000 boost. In my opinion, I think that this card is absolutely absurd. I made a video on it already talking about how this card is another boogeyman. It very much is. This card is absolutely cracked. You're playing 4 copies of it no matter what. Your top end with this deck to close out games is Kaido and Joy Boy. Gear 5th, your peak, secret rare, Monkey D. Luffy. You can play a combination of both of these cards. You can play just Kaido's, maybe max out or play 3 copies of them, or max out or play 3 copies of the Monkey D. Luffy. It's up to you. You figure out your ratios. But with that being said, I think either way you go, it's going to be a good choice as long as you're playing one of them or a combination of both of them. These are going to be absolute monsters because, again, you get to ramp, you get to play them so early at times where your opponent might not be able to deal with, and having stat lines of 10k, 12k, this is extremely impressive. Kaido, being able to pop anything that's 6 or less, a lot of blockers are gonna get destroyed even in the mirror match, right? If you look at some of the strong blockers, being 6 costs or more, being more than 6 costs isn't common. A lot of them are gonna be 6 costs or less. Kaido can take care of that. Maybe you just want to clear board and maybe establish pressure. You can go ahead and pop 1 card with Kaido's ability that might be standing, that's a cost of 6 or less, and then attack a card that's resting with Kaido because he has rush. So he gives you board control, he gives you extreme offense, all of those good things. Monkey D. Luffy can close out games by himself. Of course, he can go ahead and send back all 10 Dawn, making it so then that way you can use your leader ability. Because remember, you have to be at 0 or more than 3 Dawn. So you could use your leader ability if you are at that point and you still have life to ramp up to 1. You can go ahead and use your Monkey D. Luffy ability as well to add another Dawn, set it as active, and then when your turn switches back to your turn, you get 2 more Dawn, and you could go ahead and use Luffy's ability again if you want and do other shenanigans. More importantly, if your opponent doesn't have blockers or anything like that, you could just flat out win the game by playing Luffy after you swing, and then go ahead, play Luffy, goes to your turn again, attach your Dawn with your leader, swing with Luffy, and he can single-handedly close out games. These are your 2 top end cards. Again, you're going to be playing some combination of these, either 3 to 4 copies of Kaido, 3 to 4 copies of Luffy, or maybe 2 copies of each, or maybe like 2 copies of Kaido, 2 copies of Luffy. Well, I just said the same thing twice, but I do this all in one take. I mean, 2 copies of Kaido, 3 copies of Luffy, 3 copies of Kaido, 2 copies of Luffy. This is too many numbers. I'm probably confusing you guys. You guys get the point. We are seeing Pluffy pop off right now in Asia, and I think the Pluffy wave, the Church of Pluffy, is here to stay. Join us. Join the Church of Pluffy, guys. There's so many different ways you could build this deck as well. If you want to go more impel down engine, you can. If you want to use more events, you easily could on the defensive end, right? If you want to use page 1 and use that shenanigans, right, and ramp and play the vanillas, you could do that too. I see some people playing Babanuki. There's so many different ways that you could play this. It's just a ton of fun. If you haven't tried it out yet, now is a great time. And there's other cards that we'll be able to add into this deck as well once we get them on the sim, such as Frankie, so you have access to rush, or just use him as a 2k counter. Potentially Zoro as well to continue to add to that ramp. So the deck will only get better on the sim. Right now over in Asia, they have access to everything and the deck is just popping off. So in my opinion, I'm all in. I'm part of the Church of Pluffy. Are you? But more importantly, are you subscribed? Over 60%, that's 60, are not subscribed to your boy. Go ahead, like the video, hit that subscribe button. And also, if you guys would like to see gameplay, of this, I did a live stream earlier today. If you go on my channel and go to live, you can see my most recent live stream where I play tested and just got some games in just for fun, just mucking around, chatting with the boys. Go ahead and check that out. With that being said, I am out. Peace.